So yes, the Assassin's Creed franchise is changing forever with what is called Assassin's Creed Infinity. And we have a brand new update from Ubisoft and this very interesting article from Bloomberg about all the details you need to know about Assassin's Creed Infinity and how it's going to be mirroring live service games like GTA 5, Destiny 2, and Fortnite. It looks like they want to make one big game with multiple settings in the Assassin's Creed universe and update all of this for the foreseeable future. So yes, let's talk about Assassin's Creed Infinity. So let's do this. Hey everyone, what's happening? Open World Games here. Hope you're doing good, and let's dive into what they have to say here about Assassin's Creed Infinity, starting first of all with this Bloomberg article. So this is what they had to go on to say right here. It says, whereas previous Assassin's Creed games each unfolded in specific historical settings such as ancient Greece or Egypt, Infinity will contain multiple settings with room to expand to others in the months and years following its debut, said the people who asked not to be identified discussing a project under development. Now, individual games on the platform might look and feel different, but they will all be connected. And again, we're going to dive into the official statement from Ubisoft as well, but this is really interesting because Bloomberg apparently has details which are not in the official statement. Now, it goes on to say the following: details surrounding the project which hasn't been previously reported are in flux and still years away from release. The teams have also been affected by the Me Too allegations that have swept through the company over the last year. And it says a spokeswoman for Ubisoft declined to discuss Infinity in detail but acknowledged its existence. Ubisoft aims to exceed the expectations of fans who have been asking for a more cohesive approach to the series, the spokeswoman said. As for the sexual misconduct claims, she said Ubisoft had investigated every allegation and took appropriate actions. Now, this is an interesting one for sure, because I think a lot of the cohesive stuff that they're talking about here with Assassin's Creed is more in line with what they're doing with the Netflix series, that considering that they're making this Netflix series, they want everything to be more cohesive because things are now getting super serious for the Assassin's Creed franchise for sure. Now, let's keep going, shall we? We're going to go into the actual blog post from Ubisoft right here. This is an official statement from them about the future of Assassin's Creed and, of course, what is going on with this Assassin's Creed Infinity. It's really interesting because it seems like they're merging two major studios, the ones that created, of course, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and, of course, the team behind Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So let's dive into what they have to say about this, shall we? So they go on to say this: from its action-adventure origins to its RPG evolution, Assassin's Creed has shown how the decisions we make now, no matter how big or small, can influence the events of the future. After both Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Assassin's Creed Valhalla shattered records, we find ourselves in that very moment where we know the decisions we're making for the franchise will now impact its futures for years to come. Along with our announcement of new content coming for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, we wanted to share more key updates on the talented and creative minds that will now be working in a collaborative cross-studio structure between Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Quebec that will guide, grow, evolve, and define the overall future of Assassin's Creed. That includes an important upcoming early in development project codenamed Assassin's Creed Infinity. So it's basically in its early stages right now, and it very much is going to be a live service centric game plan here for Assassin's Creed Infinity. Again, sound off in the comments below if that sounds interesting to you or if it makes you cringe completely. But it seems like, again, they really want to release one big game and keep updating that game for years and years and years, maybe even 5 years. You know, Destiny 3, that's not even on the table for, you know, Activision and Bungie. They want to keep going with Destiny 2, and same thing with Rockstar and GTA 5, and Ubisoft is looking at this like it's their opportunity to do the same, but with the Assassin's Creed franchise. Now, it goes on to say the following. It says, the new cross-studio collaborative structure will be led by Mark Alexis Cote, who will serve as executive producer for Assassin's Creed franchise. One of the founding members of Ubisoft Quebec, Cote began his Assassin's Creed career working on Assassin's Creed Brotherhood before becoming creative director on Assassin's Creed Syndicate. These are both excellent games. You know, I think Assassin's Creed Syndicate is basically one of the more underappreciated games in the Assassin's Creed universe. I personally love it. I love the story in this one and the actual setting. And they introduced some really cool game mechanics in Syndicate for sure. Now, furthermore, let's keep reading, shall we? It says, and most recently, senior producer on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Cote will be joined by Ubisoft Montreal's Etienne Alinaire, brand director for Assassin's Creed for the last 10 years, and the respective teams in ensuring the Assassin's Creed franchise continues to exceed the expectations of fans who have been asking for a more cohesive approach to its development over the past several years. So this is going to basically allow them to bring the vision of Assassin's Creed more cohesively to all projects underneath the Assassin's Creed brand. And I assume that, again, that also includes the Netflix TV series as well, because I think they want people to feel like it's a unified universe instead of feeling like it's jumping all over the place. Now, let's keep going because this is really interesting. It says, joint production efforts on Assassin's Creed Infinity will be headed up by Ubisoft Montreal's Julien Lafari, who has been named senior producer overseeing production at both studios. Now, Lafari brings along extensive experience within the franchise, having worked on Assassin's Creed since 2007 before most recently becoming producer on Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Again, that's an excellent one, at least in my opinion. A lot of people do complain that this did not have enough assassin in the Creed portion of the Assassin's Creed franchise. A lot of people want to see more stealth and it go back to the roots of basically original Assassin's Creed games. So what's really interesting is they really have to nail down the core gameplay concepts of Infinity for this to even work. And I think they're going to have to have a lot more options in regard to both stealth and action play like previous games for this to really work out. Now, furthermore, it goes on to say this: creative leads for Assassin's Creed Infinity will be a cross-studio collaboration as well. Jonathan Dumont and Clint Hawking will share leadership as creative directors overseeing their respective teams at Ubisoft Quebec and Ubisoft Montreal. Now, Dumont was previously world director on Assassin's Creed Syndicate at Ubisoft Quebec before becoming creative director on Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Meanwhile, this moment marks Hawking's return to Ubisoft Montreal, having started at the studio in 2001 as a level designer, game designer, and scriptwriter on the original Splinter Cell, becoming creative director on Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, Noise, Far Cry 2, and most recently Watch Dogs Legion. So I really like the talent here that is focused on Infinity for sure. Now, it goes on to talk about evolving with the game industry. It says this change means we're also evolving along with the game industry. The pandemic and working from home have fundamentally changed the way we produce games, giving us a moment to reflect on our organization. Assassin's Creed was born within the walls of Ubisoft Montreal, and the studio built an incredible foundation for the franchise with the immense skill and creativity of its teams before Ubisoft Quebec then took the lead with Assassin's Creed Syndicate and Odyssey, demonstrating its ability to drive the franchise even further. Now it says, rather than continuing to pass the baton from game to game, we profoundly believe this is an opportunity for one Ubisoft's most beloved franchises to evolve in a more integrated and collaborative manner that's less centered on studios and more focused on talent and leadership, no matter where they are within Ubisoft. Most importantly, Assassin's Creed has always been developed by multicultural teams with various backgrounds and perspectives that have influenced the depiction of characters, locations, and cultures. While we know there's always room for improvement, we believe this new structure allows us to ensure that diversity and representation within our teams continues to grow and match that of our players. And they say, we hope you'll join us for this incredible journey, and we're excited to share more on what's coming up for Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Assassin's Creed Infinity at a later date. Awesome. So now, what's really interesting about this one is Bloomberg does mention that there's an intense rivalry between these two studios, and this has ruffled some feathers, apparently, according to the rumors from Bloomberg, between these studios. So we'll see what happens in the long run if this ends up being a really good decision by Ubisoft, because right now, at least in my opinion, they're nailing it big time with the Assassin's Creed franchise, despite some of the controversies that the game doesn't have enough stealth, that it's gone more action, and it's kind of forgotten about what it was really about at the very beginning when it was created. But hopefully, with Infinity, they can tap back into some of the stealth aspects of Assassin's Creed, or at least have that as a profound option on missions and really open that up in the future of the franchise through Infinity. We'll see what happens, but again, sound off in the comments below. Let me know what you guys make of the Assassin's Creed franchise basically going full-blown live service. And mentioning a live service, this is what Bloomberg had to say about that one. Let's touch base with that one real quick. They go on to say this: inspired by smash hits like Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto 5, these living online platforms can keep players engaged for years by frequently adding new content or changing the experience in dramatic ways. The fifth Grand Theft Auto game, which has sold more than 140 million copies, largely thanks to its constantly updated multiplayer mode, is approaching its 8th birthday with versions planned for a third generation of game consoles. And again, a lot of these companies are looking at this and like, we want a piece of this pie. We want to try it ourselves with our game, and that is what Ubisoft is doing right now. So yeah, again, this is what the article furthermore says. It says, service games generate huge revenue over time by hooking players and pushing them to spend money on special content within the game. GTA 5 helped drive shares of its publisher Take-Two Interactive Software Inc. up 42% at the beginning of last year. In the same period, Ubisoft shares were flat. After news of Assassin's Creed Infinity, the stock jumped again, to a gain Wednesday in intraday trading. Now, development of Assassin's Creed game typically involves thousands of employees across a dozen of Ubisoft offices, led by teams in Montreal or Quebec City that alternate duties. And the Montreal team, that helmed last year's Assassin's Creed Valhalla, while Quebec ran the previous Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now, the tradition is about to change. It says in April, Ubisoft unified the Montreal Quebec teams. Now they will collaborate on Infinity, and each will have its own creative director, but Quebec will take charge of the franchise. There has long been a rivalry again between the two studios that has at times turned acrimonious, according to people familiar with the matter. So this shift may cause some headaches. Again, we'll see. This is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see what happens, considering that everything for the most part in terms of the game's reception, in terms of Assassin's Creed as a whole, has been pretty good, at least when you look at the sales number and things like that. But yeah, there it is, guys, the latest happenings around the Assassin's Creed franchise. Expect more news and updates about Assassin's Creed Infinity, of course. Please let me know what you think about these changes. I myself just personally really enjoy a good game, a good Assassin's Creed game that is single player focused and isn't heavily monetized. So I'm a little worried, to be blunt. I hope they do this properly. But we'll see what happens. This is years and years away, and I hope they learn from, games that have kind of failed at trying this and attempting this, which of course there's been a lot of games that have failed. If you look at Anthem, Fallout 76 has had somewhat of a comeback there, but its reception initially was terrible. So hopefully, Ubisoft can take to that and learn about those mistakes and really tap into that and create Assassin's Creed Infinity with being at its core a really good single player experience. But again, that's up in the air. It's years away. I'll keep you guys in the know as to what happens with Assassin's Creed Infinity. I'm both equal parts excited for this and a little bit apprehensive as well. But only time will tell what happens with Infinity. But thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned for more, and I will see you all next time. Take care.